Ecotone is the zone of transition between two different ecosystems. And in this transitional zone, there can be seen an increased or decreased diversity of animals and plants. And this increased or decreased diversity of plant and animal in the transitional zone, that is the ecotone, is called edge effect. For example, here in this mangrove area is the ecotone between the salty seawater and the freshwater river. So this mangrove area, these are the breeding grounds of various type of animals. For example, fishes, various aquatic invertebrates, as well as even turtles and other type of even crabs. So this entire region is having a greater diversity. This shallow region, brackish water region, the mangrove region is having a greater diversity than the entire river as well as the coastal open sea. So, this increased diversity that is in the mangrove area is a edge effect. In this edge effect, we are seeing an increased diversity because the mangrove ecotone, is a natural one. On the other hand, in the lower diagram, this is the chum cultivation that is followed in the northeastern region of India. And here, this type of slash burning agriculture has been one of the most primitive type of agricultural practices, and now discarded by many countries because of you know less amount of availability of forest. And also, if they look at the environmental factor, then also zoom cultivation or slash burn technique is not that much uh, permitted these days. But this is a type of ecotone, that is the slash burn area, where the forests are chopped down and burned so that the mineral rich ash, it improves the fertility of the soil in which it is growing, in where the slash burn was done, improves the fertility of the soil. But at the same time, this slash burn process has reduced the density, the population, the animal density in this ecotonal region. This entire ecotonal region surrounding the area that is been slash burned, these entire area will have a much lower density of animals. This is because as this region, this ecotonal region is very close to the agricultural field, so naturally this area will be prone to pollution by pesticides and even fertilizers. And also, as this entire region surrounding the cultivated land will have more access to sunlight, it will have more ground vegetation that will dry up during the dry season and will be very much prone to forest fire. In fact, there is a much greater intensity of forest fire in those forests where we are seeing this type of slash burn agriculture. And even few years back, there was one forest fire in Brazil that was not that cannot be doused for some few days. So this is a very detrimental effect of the anthropogenic ecotone that has been created. It reduces the biodiversity, and this is the edge effect, negative edge effect of any ecotone. Hello friends, I am Dr. Ayantika Das, and in this video I am going to discuss a very important topic, that is the edge effect in ecology. Most of the questions, that is, comes from at least one or two questions comes every year in CSI net and various type of set exams, especially GSET. And I've already made videos on ecotone, and now I'm discussing the edge effect, where I'll discuss edge effect with various examples, its features, and all. And so in the next video, that is the follow-up video of this video, I will be discussing about ecocline, ecotype, and ring species. So, this is the GSET question that I have been talking about, and we'll discuss this question at the end of the video. So, this is a mismatch type of, this is a question where we have to find out which is the mismatch, and there are definitions. On the left side, we are seeing edge effect, Sere, sacred groove, and ecotype, and in the we have to just find out which one is the mismatched definition of these terms. So, the edge effect, it is basically the increase or decrease in the population and community structure in the ecotonal region. For example, this in this diagram we are seeing this forest area. This is the forested area, so this is one entire ecosystem, and this is the ocean ecosystem. And in the intermediate, this region, we are seeing the ecotones, that is the beach ecotone. So in this area there will be less structural stability due to the wave action, and also due to this lower amount of structural stability, the sandy beach will have lesser vegetation. And so this there can be, this is an example of natural ecosystem where there is a reduced species diversity. The edge effect is a negative edge effect. And there can be also many examples, like for example in a mining area where the area is getting denuded for mining activities, and the soil becomes soil in the adjacent area becomes highly saturated with heavy metals, as well as due to mining there will be high acidity in this soil. So such type of ecotone surrounding the mining area will be devoid of many specialist species, and there will generally include very tough generalist species. Also the urban area and the surrounding area. So in the ecotone surrounding the urban area there will be another again, there will be generalist species mostly, and the specialist species which require very special environment for its survival will be reduced. So if now let me talk about the generalist and specialist species. Now specialist species are those species in ecology, they need very specific environment, very specific food range they have got. So for their survival they need very specific conditions. They need very specific temperature, they need very specific type of food. So such type of species are called specialist species. For example, the panda that feed on only bamboo, that also very tender bamboo shoots, or for example koala that feed on only eucalyptus leaves, or say for example cactus finches that feed on only the cactus fruits, and cactus pygmy owl that live in only the saguara cactus. So these are the examples we can say of specialist species. So such type of species will not be an edge species, that is they will be living, for example this is one forest habitat, and this is a desert habitat, desert ecosystem, and in the intermediate we are having grassland ecosystem. So this grassland ecosystem that I am coloring in red will not contain any specialist species like koala or panda. They will be inhabited by generalist. For example, in the rats and not rats but other rodent family, moles and meerkat, like this type of animals, because they feed on both grasses and they feed on insects, they feed on a lot of they are actually omnivore type of species, are generally generalist. For example, raccoon, which is very common in north and south, even central America. So these feed on berries, they feed on insects, they feed on uh, small animals also, and even the eggs of birds and all. So they feed on a wide range of food item. So such type of species are generalist species. They do not require very specific condition, so they can easily survive in any ecotone. They are very adaptive so far the food and environmental condition are needed. So any ecotonal region will contain high number of general species, and only those the specialist species, they will be limited to the very center region of the ecotone, the core region of the ecosystem. So the specialist will be, again I am repeating, the specialist will be at the core of the ecosystem, and the ecotonal species or edge species, they are the generalist. For example, there is a very good example. We know that in South and Central America, we have got a large variety of bird species, and each bird species is endemic to certain region. So we see that the bird species, those are endemic, they are the specialists, and we see at the edge of the jungle there is a decreased amount of birds. The diversity of bird, it it is very much dependent upon the directly dependent upon the distance from the core area. So the diversity of the specialist bird is found only in the core region of forests, as well as the generalist species of bird are usually found very close to human habitation or the edge of the forest. For example, we'll find various a species of sunbirds in the endemic core region, whereas many other species of birds that can also feed on in the urban area are only those type of general. So the in the last slide I was talking about generalist and specialist species. So here are the examples. We see that deer, elk, rabbit, blue jays, these are the animals that can survive, say for example deer, they survive on grasses, and it doesn't matter whatever be the species of grasses, it can survive on any type of grasses, any species of grasses. Rabbits on the other hand, they dig burrow in the grasslands, and just like rabbits and also various species of rodents, for example the uh, the meerkats and all, they survive in this grasslands, that is an ecotonal region between desert and the forest, and these they survive on a wide variety of food matter that is available in this grassland. Also they are very tolerant, they have intermediate tolerance for water as well as high temperature. They have an intermediate tolerance between desert and temperature and the forest temperature. They are also somewhat tolerant to water stress, not to the extent of the desert species and not to the extent of the forest species, but they have intermediate adaptation. On the other hand, if the plants are concerned, we see that the ecotonal species, they they are very much adapted to either of these conditions, that is between the desert and the forest. So these plants will be tolerant to high temperature, they will be intolerant to shade, that is they will be tolerant to high amount of sunlight, that is they will be heliophytes. So in this intermediate region we will find grasses, abundance of shrubs, and also vines surrounding the trees. So another thing is that some species, those endemic species, core species that live in the core region, they are restricted to the core of the forest or the ecosystem they are in. But there are certain species that migrate from the core region to the ecotonal region, and these species, they are generally the generalist species. So while for example, uh, if there is an anthropogenically induced ecotone, and we have a agricultural setting, and so we have set fire to the agricultural land, so those species, especially the generalist bird and animals, they move away from the agricultural land that is set on fire to the core region, and on return of favorable condition again, they return to the edge, to the ecotonal region. So this is a kind of migration that we see in many species, to and fro the ecotonal region, or between two ecosystem and the core region. Another thing that is responsible, that determines the edge effect, is that the many effects like predation, brood parasitism, competition, herbivory, pollination, and seed dispersal. Now, pollination and seed dispersal. So, there are many plants, for example, in the anthropogenic area where the anthropogenically created ecotone, that is the agricultural region, where it is set fire to remove the previous year vegetation, and also to prevent fungal diseases and also fertilize the soil. They have set fire to the agricultural region, and certain plants, they are not tolerant to fire, will die. But there are also certain plants which require fire for germination of their seeds. So they flower and they produce seed only when they get a certain temperature. And this type of plants, especially certain varieties of grasses, certain variety of pine, so they this type of species, they only propagate profusely after they get the high temperature. So the pollination dispersal is also dependent upon the conditions that is found in the ecotonal region, and so the edge effect of these plants will depend upon the anthropogenic conditions. Another thing is that brood parasitism. We know that birds like cuckoo and all, they are not found in very deep forest, they are living only in the ecotonal region, and they take advantage of other birds. They lay their eggs on other birds nest, and that is called brood parasitism. Especially cuckoo, it actually brood parasitizes on many other songbirds. So this ecotonal species, it is not found in the deep forest, but in the open forest, as well as very near to the human habitation. So this is the edge effect on. Then we have the wetland. Why I'm discussing the wetland? Because the terrestrial to terrestrial edge effect has been much discussed, but the uh, that I have also discussed in the ecotonal video. But the diversity between an ecotone, between terrestrial and aquatic, is much more, and it also depend upon many factors. For example, this aquatic and terrestrial ecotone, that is, for example, this entire area, we are seeing that it is rich in much higher vegetation than either this and this region. So the ecotonal region has an edge effect of increased occurrence of grasses and hydrophytic plants, but this increased number of species is due to the change in the abiotic as well as biotic component. Biotic component are the organic component, and abiotic is the physiochemical component that I'm talking. And so this aquatic ecotonal region, it also depend upon the flow rate of water. For example, the river is a very high speed river, so their ecotonal region will contain lesser amount of species than a very slow flowing river. This is because of the fact that in very high speed flowing river, they will have lesser amount of a lesser amount of submerged plant, lesser amount of even floating plants. So these less amount of plant in the ecotonal region will create a scarcity of food. So there will be also lesser amount of insects that feed on those plants, and in turn there will be lesser amount of frogs and other small birds that feed on these insects, and also then there will be lesser amount of larger birds that feed on both the frog and smaller birds. So this is a very chain like reaction, where the flow rate of river or water body, or the wave action of the water body, is determining the edge effect. Also, if the water body is an ephemeral, that is a very short-lived water body, then also there will be a pronounced edge effect of having reduced species. So there are many anthropogenic influences that affect the edge effect, that affect the edge species. For example, development of any land area, that is alternation of land use pattern of an area, for example from forested area to agriculture, or from example the from the agricultural land or forest area to the urbanization, it will cause habitat loss and habitat fragmentation. Especially, there has been found that when there is an improved road connectivity, that is in India we are having the second most density of road just after America. So we see that have our country is much smaller in size than compared to America, and we have the second highest density of roads. So we can easily see that the area that is fragmented, the ecological habitat are highly fragmented by these roads, and due to this fragmentation there is reduction in the size of the habitat, and as a result of this there is habitat loss, because there are many species, that is a specialist species, that prefer to live in the core of the ecosystem. And if the ecosystem is getting fragmented, so naturally there will be no place for these species that prefer the calm of the forest or living in the core area of any ecosystem. They will be gradually endangered, and gradually they will be extinct. So this alternation of land use pattern, that is in either for development or for agriculture or deforestation, so these are the anthropogenic influence that negatively affect the edge effect. And there are also many other factors that has a negative effect on edge species, that is these human induced fire frequency. Due to this zoom cultivation or slash pan cultivation, there has been a higher incidence of fire. Also, with the increase in the road connectivity, with the increase in urbanization, there has been an increased trend of introduction, either accidental or intentional incidents of introducing the various exotic plant as well as animal species. For example, in the island nations, for example in Galapagos or the islands surrounding Australia and all, these there are many bird species that has their population has become endangered after the introduction of animals like pigs and dogs. These were the animals that were not native to these Galapagos Island or the islands lying in and around Australia. So these have caused endangerment of birds, that is the pigs feeding on the birds' eggs, the especially cassowary. Cassowary is one of the bird, cassowary and kiwi. These are the birds that whose eggs were regularly foraged by the pigs, and that has been introduced by early settlers. There has been much improvement in the situation after the artificial breeding of these birds, and also by reducing the number of pigs in that area. So there has been this improved breeding, as a result of which the birds are now getting much higher number. We are getting much higher number of these birds. But earlier, due to this introduction of this pet animals like pig and cats and dogs in these very remote islands, there has been an alternation in the bird population. So this is also another very potent anthropogenic influence that reduce the diversity of the edge species, because these are the pets for us, but for those birds they were just predators. And also they were predators, and also sometimes they had the same trophic level, so they were also competitors. Again, they've another important point is the trails. Now we set up trails, for example Yoshida trails in Mount Fuji. But by creating such type of trails, we enjoy nature, but the area surrounding these trails, they get affected. For example, there are many we know that dragonflies that feed on the mosquitoes, and in fact the dragonflies prefer to live in a very calm place, that is in the center of the eco tone and not on the sides of the trail. So we see that though mosquitoes are present anywhere, there will be high temperature and vegetation, but along the side of the trails we are seeing much higher incidence of mosquito. Why? Because these mosquitoes, they are not predated by the dragonfly along the trail, because dragonfly prefer to live in the core area of any ecotone and not along the trail. As a result of which, absence of predator has increased the population of mosquitoes along the trail. So this is also another edge effect that has been the altered edge effect of that has been affected by. So there is a very good example, Amazon rainforest. We know that Amazon rainforest is the most densely populated, densely one of the densest rainforest. And in the Amazon rainforest, we have seen that last decade, we have been seeing that there are frequent forest fires. And in fact, this one is a picture that I've taken from the Brazil forest fire that happened few years back. So there has been an increased incidence of forest fire that has been reducing the biodiversity. So this forest fire mostly occur along the slash burn cultivation area. So that has caused an pronounced age effect along the agricultural and the forest ecotone. Also, there has been a greater reduction in the number of uh, forest area, and in northern america also. Before the european settlers, when they first settled, there were much higher vegetation, and now, as a result of more amount of altered land use pattern, there has been a greater amount of area under this ecotone, and that has created a pronounced edge effect. There has been a reduction in the number of there has been a reduction in the number of specialist species, and there has been endangerment of a wide variety of species. So this is the GSET question that I've been talking about, where we have to find out the mismatch, not the right option, but the mismatch. So there are the definitions of certain ecological terms. So let's see. Option A, that is edge effect, tendency of increased variety and density of species at community junction. Community junction is the ecotone, the junction, the transitional region between two community, that is a community junction. So edge effect is the tendency of increased variety and density of species. Yes, it is a right option, it is a right definition, so it is not a mismatch. So it will option A is not the mismatch. Second is the sera. Sera is actually in ecological succession. It begins with a pioneer species that is very much simplified in form, and it has got adaptation for living in very low amount of humidity, low amount of nutrient. So these are very hardy species, but also very simple species gradually gets replaced by complex species. These each species getting replaced by another, it is the sera in ecological succession, and ultimately a species of plant will come that will not be replaced by any other plant. That is the climax species, which will have the all the adaptations of not getting replaced. This is more complex than the other species in the sera. So basically, this is also a very correct definition of sera. So option B is not the right option. It is not a mismatch. Then we have the sacred groves. As the name suggests, sacred, which is means it is very religiously, it is pious. Grove is the forest. So this pious forest, religious forest, these trees in the grove of the forest, they are actually worshipped by local community or tribal people. In India, we have a lot of sacred groves, and also we have a lot of sacred groves outside India also. In India, especially in the third region, we see that many a scrubland area are getting maintained by the Bishnoi community, who veneer these grooves, and so they are not getting replaced by any other developmental work. And there are also in our Gujarat also, there are 42 such sacred groves. Most of them are either shrubland or mangroves, and these mangrove area, it is not getting replaced or deforested because of this being tagged as a sacred grove. So they are protected in that way. Also in northeast, like that we have the in Meghalaya, we have such Mapflang and Mausami type of sacred groves, where also the trees in that area, they are considered sacred and they are not chopped or lopped, and so these areas survive. And in Delhi also, we have this Mangarbani region, where the Gurjars, they protect this sacred grove area, and like this. So it is a method of conservation, but it is not a ex situ. Ex situ means we take out that organism or plant that we are conserving from their natural site and conserve it. Like for example, we take out any plant, do artificial breeding, and then we get a huge population of it. That is ex situ. That is ex situ. But here in the sacred grove, the sacred groves of the trees, they are prevented from getting chopped, or they are not even lobbed, or there is no coppicing also done. So basically, this is an in situ conservation. This will not be. This sacred grove is done. Conservation is done in situ. In situ. So this is a in situ conservation. Sacred grove is a type of conservation of the forest plant by in situ conservation, that is on the site conservation. So this is a mismatch. So this one is a mismatched option. Then at D we have ecotype. Ecotypes, they are genetic races of a species. They are not separate species, but they are genetic races within a species. They are not so genetically distinct that they will be considered a subspecies. But the certain amount of genetic difference is found, and that genetic difference is heritable. And these heritable variations that we see in a species, that is ecotype, is dependent upon the environmental condition. So this is also a right definition of ecotype. So D will also not be the option. So the only mismatch here is the option C is the only mismatch here. So it is the sacred grove is a in situ conservation, that is on site conservation. So that was all about edge effect. Earlier I have made a video on ecotone, which is a pre-video to this video. You can go and watch that video first for a better understanding. Next videos will be about ring species, ecotype, and other ecological videos. My earlier ecological videos, I put all the links in the description box of the ecological videos. I've also made videos on algae, fungi, bryophytes, pteridophytes, about cyanobacteria, many other videos, and that I have put in the playlist. You can go to my channel and watch those videos. If you like this video, please do share it with your friends, and please do subscribe, because your subscription, it encourages me. And those who have already subscribed to my channel, thanks for subscription. Thanks again for watching this video, and please do let me know how you like this video and any new topic that you want me to make videos on. And thanks again for watching this video.